Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, April 16th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma, in for Maya Trabulsi. We begin tonight with a familiar sight. San Diegans waiting in line, many for hours, hoping to get a vaccination. With the age limit lower now and no real super sites taking appointments, crowds are gathering at community clinics, waiting their turn. And our Matt Hoffman was with them.
I'm glad I'm vaccinated.
Elisa Lane from Eastlake was one of hundreds who lined up outside Southwestern College for a one-day vaccination event that was first come, first served. She got here around 6:30 this morning.
And waited until they started.
We're told some were here as early as 3 a.m., but for Lane, it was worth waiting a few hours as she was able to get her 3 kids vaccinated too. She says her daughter heard about this no-appointment pop-up site.
She told us yesterday and we just said, let's just go because we've been trying to do it online with no success.
The event was targeting those in about a dozen zip codes hit hard by the pandemic, including here in Chula Vista, San Isidro, and Bonita. San Diego County Supervisor Nora Vargas helped set it up.
We're going to keep at it, and we're going to make sure that we reach, herd immunity, and the only way we can do that is making sure that we have these pop-up locations so that people can have access as they deserve.
Demand is outpacing supply, and not everyone who showed up here today was able to get a vaccination.
Really? Yes. Oh, shoot.
While at least 400 people got their shots, many were turned away.
I would love to do more. One of the things that I've seen from this turnout is this is a good location. We have the space to be able to distance people.
Southwestern College's Marquise Jackson says they're hoping to host more pop-up sites here soon, with South Bay residents getting priority.
We really wanted this community to get access to the vaccine.
Jackson says he saw some Southwestern students in line now that vaccinations are open up to everyone 16 and over. The county's ability to pivot and do more of these kinds of sites depends on how many doses are coming in.
Now we're waiting on the governor and the federal government, actually, to make sure that we get more vaccines.
Right now, county-sponsored sites are using Moderna and Pfizer doses, and the governor says he's hopeful that the single-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine will be reauthorized soon in order to help the state reach its goal of lifting nearly all restrictions come June 15th. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
A reminder, we have more information about how and where to get your shot at kpbs.org. Just go to our homepage and then click on the Vaccines tab. Orange Tier guidelines are bringing new changes to entertainment venues here in San Diego. KPBS reporter Alexandra Rangel joins us from Petco Park with what this means for capacity limits.
A celebratory day for Padres fans for many reasons, but one in particular is that capacity limits at Petco Park are increasing, which means more tickets will be available for Padres fans. Limited capacity at outdoor events has made it difficult for fans to get their hands on Padres tickets. Nancy Ruiz, a longtime Padre fan, says she won 4 tickets in a workplace raffle for Friday's game against the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Super big Padre fan, so I got free tickets from my job. And I was like, come on, girls, let's go watch a game.
Some fans who aren't as lucky as Ruiz may still be able to snag a ticket. Padres CEO Eric Grupner says more fans will be allowed in the stadium.
We anticipate attendance or capacity will increase from about 10,000 to about 15,250 for this homestand as a result of those changes.
Petco Park can now increase its capacity from 25% to 33%. Using seating sections in the ballpark designated for people who can show proof that they've been fully vaccinated. They can also show a negative COVID-19 test within the last 72 hours before game day. These sections will have a capacity limit up to 67%.
We're supposed to get COVID tests, which we just did right now. And luckily, we all came out negative.
Ruiz says she was able to get tested at Petco Park, as they are now offering rapid testing before the game. Half-season ticket holder Daniel Santillan says he's looking forward to attending more games now that he's vaccinated.
I'm just excited to have more fans. I mean, more tickets means I get to go to the game more often. As long as it's safe, I'm good with it.
For those lucky enough to attend Friday's game, Grupner says fans are in for a special treat.
We're going to open up gates 2 hours before first pitch, and we're going to have a special pregame ceremony honoring Joe Musgrove and the franchise's first no-hitter.
Pitcher Joe Musgrove threw the Padres' first ever no-hitter just a week ago. Grupner says masking is still required for all attendees at Petco Park, and attendance remains limited to California residents only.
Go Padres!
Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
With the state deadline looming, the city of Del Mar approved a proposal for more affordable housing that includes building on the Del Mar Fairgrounds. That's easier said than done. KPBS's Alexander Nguyen has more on what that entails.
With a median home price of $2 million plus, Del Mar has an affordable housing issue.
Like every other city in the county and the state, has to provide a means for affordable housing to be built. And you do that by changing your zoning.
The city needs to zone for 113 affordable housing units to comply with the state's mandate. They submitted the proposal April 9th, a week before the state's April 15th deadline. The plan calls for building 51 affordable housing units on Del Mar Fairgrounds land. The rest of the units include rezoning the downtown district and increasing the number of granny flats. As for the fairground, while it's located within the city's jurisdiction, Del Mar does not own the land. The state does.
So we need, in principle, agreement from the state level that oversees the 22nd Agricultural District all the way to the Fairgrounds Board and the Fairgrounds staff.
The 22nd District Agricultural Association oversees the fairgrounds. In February, the board voted against entering into a memorandum of understanding with the city to build on the land. In an email statement to KPBS, Board President Richard Valdez says the board took that action because it felt it was premature to make a binding commitment which would trigger several legal obligations upon the fairgrounds. But Mayor Gastelum says the city council is very committed to this idea and is looking to work with the fairgrounds on a new MOU. Valdez signals that the fairground board is willing to entertain the idea. In the same statement, he says the board has formed an ad hoc committee for the purpose of conducting further discussions with the city of Del Mar regarding the possibility of future affordable housing on the fairgrounds property. The city and the fairgrounds board now have 3 years to come to an agreement. In Del Mar, Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
If an agreement can't be reached, Del Mar will have to resort to its contingency plan and rezone the city's north and south bluffs for development. City council members and residents have said that's something they don't want. And last year, voters rejected a proposal for a luxury hotel resort on the city's north bluff. The coastal bluffs along San Diego's North County beaches are like a ticking time bomb. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne tells us researchers are trying to get ahead of Mother Nature and come up with an early warning system for beachgoers.
Our coastal bluffs are a sight to see, both from the beach and the trains that cruise along them. But the unstable bluffs pose a hazard from both angles. Assemblymember Tasha Berner-Horvath now wants to pass a bill that would create an early warning system when the bluffs are in danger of failing.
If they just had an early warning notification system, if there was a light or if there's sound, that family could have run into the ocean and avoided the tragedy that happened.
A bluff collapse in Encinitas claimed the lives of 3 women back in 2019. If AB 66 is approved, the bill would allocate $2.5 million to Scripps Institution of Oceanography for research to create an early warning system.
The scientists at Scripps started already doing some of the research, but they really need this $2.5 million to accelerate that and be very specifically focused under what these conditions of bluff collapse are.
Scripps would study the bluffs from Torrey Pines to Oceanside, but Assemblymember Berner-Horvath says the findings would be beneficial statewide.
That data is super important for the rest of our state, because that tragedy that happened in Leucadia, we're not isolated. It's happened in Santa Cruz. It's happened in San Francisco. It's going to accelerate.
In the meantime, transit officials have been installing support columns and doing emergency repairs to prevent the bluffs from collapsing, thereby preserving the railways atop the bluffs. John Haggerty, the Director of Engineering and Construction for Sandag, says while the repairs and reduced train speeds help prevent bluff accidents, the rail lines will need relocation.
We're really anticipating and expect that the region will move the rail inland. And I think that's a necessity, not just because Mother Nature is going to eventually catch up to us, but to make the rail line faster and more efficient for the region.
Haggerty said research from Scripps could be a great tool in getting ahead of Mother Nature.
I think that would be fantastic. I mean, if somebody could actually point to us and say, hey, this is getting weak here, you need to do something on this area of the bluff, that would allow us to not be in a reactive situation and be more proactive.
The repairs on the Del Mar Bluffs will continue interrupting rail schedules with another closure this weekend. The rail line between Solana Beach and San Diego will be closed from Saturday to early morning Tuesday. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
It's been a part of Ocean Beach since 1966, but a new engineering report says the OB Pier is in bad shape and might have to be demolished. KPBS reporter John Carroll talked to those who live in and love OB about what the loss of the pier would mean.
There's nothing unusual about piers in seaside towns and cities in California, but this one is deeply embedded in what makes OB, OB.
I'm sort of in shock that it's as dire as it is.
The pier is an impressive structure, 1,971 feet, making it the longest concrete pier on the West Coast. It opened on July 2nd, 1966 to great fanfare. Thousands of people showed up. Then Governor Edmund Pat Brown was the first person to fish off the pier on that day. But the pounding dealt out on a daily basis by the Pacific has taken its toll. The damage is spelled out in this report just released to the city. The first line, the Ocean Beach Fishing Pier has reached the end of its service life.
To lose the pier would be a devastation to Ocean Beach, the Point Loma, San Diego as well. It would hurt our businesses as well as all the other local businesses in the area. I know the fellow who has the Wow Cafe out there, he was shocked to find that out yesterday. And I think he doesn't even know what to say about it.
We asked the city what they have to say about it. They issued a statement that says, in part, the city continues to move forward with the design of a future capital improvements program project that will repair and replace much of the structural components that have or soon will exceed their useful life while addressing rising sea levels caused by climate change. We asked for clarification on whether that means there's a possibility the pier could be demolished. We didn't receive a response. The report lays out several options, from simply demolishing the pier to fixing it to building a new one, the latter two options running into the tens of millions of dollars. Denny Knox says she's reaching out to everyone she can think of at the city to make sure there's an understanding of how much this means to OB, and she's hoping for a miracle.
Somebody has $60 million they don't know what to do with. I have a project for you.
For folks who live here, especially for those who've lived here a long time, the thought that what began on that beautiful day in 1966 when the pier was brand new could come to an end with no pier at all is just unthinkable. In Ocean Beach, John Carroll, KPBS News.
It's official. The 79th District has a new assembly member. La Mesa Council member Dr. Akila Weber is the winner. The results certified by the county registrar. Weber won this special election with 52% of the vote, avoiding a runoff election. Republican candidate Marco Contreras finished second with just over 33%. Akila Weber takes over the seat formerly held by her mother, Shirley, who is now California Secretary of State. Unemployment in San Diego dropped to just under 7% last month. That's according to figures released today by the State Employment Development Department. However, unemployment is still well above the year-ago rate of 3.8%. Some of the biggest gains were in the leisure and hospitality industry, which added 5,000 jobs between February and March. Those jobs are starting to come back as theme parks like Legoland California begin to reopen. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer looks at what that means for the Carlsbad economy.
3, 2, 1.
After testing out a soft reopening over the last 2 weeks, Legoland opened its doors for guests Thursday to ride roller coasters, drive miniature cars, and experience Miniland USA for the first time in more than a year. Julia Strada is a spokesperson for Legoland. She says that capacity is currently limited to 25% in the orange tier, but any amount of reopening is great news for their employees.
It's been a tough year. We had about 1,200 of our staff here at Legoland California that were on furlough, so we're slowly rephasing, bringing them back in, retraining them.
The Carlsbad Chamber of Commerce's Brett Schonsenbach says reopening Legoland allows for tourists to boost the Carlsbad economy.
Now, there's a lot more to our tourism than just Legoland. The beaches, the golf, there's all kinds of great things to attract people here. But Legoland is definitely the anchor.
Estrada says Legoland California is the last of the company's 8 theme parks across the world to reopen, which has given them insights on how to reopen safely during a global pandemic, in addition to using face masks and temperature checks.
When you're riding the rides, you'll stay together as a group, and then there'll be a space in between. It'll be cleaned intermittently. There are hand sanitizer stations all throughout the resort, and we are contactless with all of our payments.
Guests need to purchase tickets through Legoland California's new reservation system ahead of time. Legoland Hotel and Legoland Castle Hotel are also open for business. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
You can add Universal Studios to the list of theme parks that are back open. Like Legoland and SeaWorld, attendance is limited to California residents. One of the new attractions is a revamped Jurassic Park ride. Other rides are still off limits as Universal works with the state on COVID safety measures. Recent numbers show people are ready to spend, whether close to home or on a long overdue vacation. SDSU's Mira Kopik breaks down the latest boost for retail in the Friday Business Report.
The stimulus payments came at the right time to really help drive the economy. Retail sales in the month of March increased almost 10%. This is a big sign that the economy is improving. What's interesting is that in that retail sales growth, you're seeing jobless claims declining. This week, there was a huge drop in jobless claims from an average of about 725,000 claims a week for the last 4 or 5 weeks to 576,000 claims. What the retail spending showed is that the stimulus package, the $1.9 trillion stimulus package that was passed by Congress in March, really made its way through the economy. And some other signals that are going to be important is that airlines, for example, are showing that travelers are really going to expand, are planning ahead. They're buying tickets all the way into the fall and into the winter. And most airlines are saying that this summer, airlines will be at 80 to 90% capacity.
If you're into UFOs, check this out. There's a local connection. The U.S. Department of Defense has confirmed this leaked video taken in 2019 is of the real thing, a legitimate UFO. The Pentagon says the unidentified flying objects moving through the clouds were taken by Navy personnel off our coast. The military's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force is investigating these 3 strange air or spacecraft. One appears to be triangle-shaped, another shaped like an acorn, another one described as a metallic blimp which moves like a rocket. Beyond confirming the phenomena is unexplained, the DoD will not provide additional information for security reasons. Google Earth is out with a new feature that lets users see the dramatic effect of climate change over the past 4 decades. Time-lapse is a compilation of 24 million satellite photos taken from 1984 to 2020. Users can click through images of different areas of the planet and see melting ice caps, receding glaciers, urban growth, and wildfires' impact on agriculture. You can type any location to see it in motion.
The good news is if you're wanting spring to come, warmer temperatures at least, we're going to start to see that as we head into next week. The bad news is no sign of rain, which we always could use a little of. Marine layer, though, will start to thin over the next few days. That's going to allow some offshore flow. Well, part of the reason why the marine layer is thinning is because of that late offshore flow coming in on Sunday. And it's going to really ramp up those temperatures for the start of the work week. So We're going to see some big changes over the next couple of days. First up, though, tonight, still fairly quiet. 57 the low in San Diego. Notice still a lot of those coastal clouds coming their way on in from the marine layer. 50 in Oceanside, Mount Laguna coming into 45 rather for that low. Again, the marine layer's there, but it's starting to thin. Not as thick as it's been the past couple of days. So for tomorrow morning, we do have that impact towards the coast. Not as much cloud cover, though, through the interior locations. And that's partly because this storm system is still hanging out over the Four Corners, where they're dealing with some rain, snow showers. We are far enough away from it. We don't get in on any of that activity, which is why we'll stay quiet, dry. Still, though, with a bit of an onshore flow for tomorrow. 68 the high in San Diego. Notice most of our numbers in the 60s or 70s. Some places like Mount Laguna in the mid-50s. Chula Vista coming in at 67 degrees. Now, once we get into Sunday, there's warm air building, and we're going to be talking some big temperature changes to close out the weekend. Check it out on the 5-day here. We go from the mid-60s on the coast to Sunday near 80 degrees. Monday will be back into the mid-70s, so a big warm-up for Sunday and Monday, at least for some locations. That includes our inland locations, where we go from the mid-70s on Saturday to the mid-80s on Sunday and Monday. Plenty of sunshine out there with that offshore flow. We won't have much in the way of cloud cover to contend with. And that's going to hold again through Monday for most locations. We'll start to see some of those clouds come back in, even in the mountains for Tuesday and Wednesday. A little bit breezier and cooler. The deserts, we're headed to the 90s, mid-90s for Monday. Tuesday, we actually could stay in the lower 90s as well. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
The Museum of Photographic Arts in Balboa Park is back for the first time since the pandemic. There are 2 new exhibits. Beginning Forever is based on collections of the Kiyosato Museum of Photographic Arts. It presents works by historical and emerging artists made before they were 35 years old. And Illusion, the Magic of Motion, returns to MOPA. The 10th Pack Arts Spring Showcase starts next Friday and runs through May 2nd. Once again, the festival will take place online with films and discussions all held virtually. KPBS Arts reporter Beth Accomando has a preview. A warning to our viewers that this story contains disturbing images of hate crimes.
Pack Arts Spring Showcase has always been a joyous celebration of Asian film. But the pandemic, coupled with a recent rise in anti-Asian hate crimes, makes this year feel different, says artistic director Brian Hu.
Feels like we need to do this now. But the pandemic has created challenges. Some films aren't as available as they used to be. And then, of course, the anti-Asian attacks that have been very visible remind us that perhaps we need to be thinking about our visibility as a film festival as a way to combat the dehumanizing images that we often see, or just to show, especially to other Asian Americans, that there's plenty that we can still be joyous about.
That's why Hu created the program Songs Our Elders Taught Me. These are films that focus on older Asian American characters. Hu challenged himself to find films that have never been available streaming, like Cosmopolitan and The Wash.
One of our films, The Wash, it was never released on DVD, but the filmmaker reminded me that there was a Laserdisc of it. So if we could track that down, he let us show it. And so we tracked it down, and we tracked down the equipment necessary to capture it digitally.
In another sidebar called Sovereign Cinema, the focus is on documentaries about Hawaii.
I discovered that there is a film collective that's been around for decades called Namaka Okaena, and they've been making like the most incisive, committed political documentaries that I've seen kind of anywhere in the world.
One of the films is Act of War, The Overthrow of the Hawaiian Nation, a video documentary from the 1990s. The technology may feel dated, but the documentary is packed with information.
And in 1893, in an act of war, in an armed invasion, and in violation of international law, our nation was taken.
It's so dense with information. It changes your entire perspective on Hawaii's notion of sovereignty.
Cane Fire is a new documentary that cleverly uses Hollywood movies like Blue Hawaii with Elvis Presley
This is the moment
to show what has colored our perspective on the islands.
I've waited for.
the culture has been appropriated. Hollywood films are all very quote unquote respectful to the Hawaiian culture. It's very much about the music and the costumes. But like, what good does that do for somebody in Hawaii who is seeing all of their natural resources and their land being increasingly bought up and turned into property through the very same kinds of institutional mechanisms that are creating these kinds of like respectable images.
Who has also programmed a wonderful film from Iran's Majid Majidi called Sun Children, which looks to street kids.
But he has the spin on it, which is a heist film. It's still grounded in realism, but it has this jolt of energy of like are they gonna find the treasure that makes this really stand out, not just in Iranian cinema, but for Asian cinema more broadly.
And since he mentioned jolts of energy, that's my cue to highlight my favorite part of the festival, Mystery Kung Fu Theater. The titles are a secret, but you're guaranteed outrageous, old-school Kung Fu action.
And I think our audiences are going to have a blast with the two films that we've chosen for this program. It's going to be a double feature, and it's going to be live streamed via Twitch.
And streamed on a Saturday morning to remind many of us of how we discovered Kung Fu movies on TV. Attendees will be able to chat with each other online to savor every delicious line and applaud every crazy martial arts move. So despite a serious social context for this year's spring showcase, there's still joy to be found. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us and have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.